to the Core Dog Experience for our Taco House State Buckeyes. So if you're liking this segment, please hit the like button. And if you enjoy Buckeye content in general, please subscribe. But for this time out, I'm going to veer off the path just a little bit and talk about this women's championship game. Our Buckeyes weren't in it, but I'm going to wrap it around. I'm going to make it somewhat Buckeye related. Make it somewhat Buckeye related, but I watched the women's game and I was interested and intrigued by the women's Final Four, much more so than the men's Final Four this time out. I think the game's a matchup for a lot more intriguing, a lot more interesting, a lot more storylines going on the ladies' side this year as opposed to the men. First of all, you had Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Dawn Staley, undefeated South Carolina, the scoring machine that Iowa was. Kim Mulkey and her story. And then you had the men's game, the men's Final Four, which outside of Florida Atlantic ain't all that much interesting. Who's trying to watch Miami Hurricanes play basketball? And besides, UConn's been blowing everybody out anyway. Is that going to even be a game tomorrow between them and San Diego State? As much as a lot of folks I know have some folks that go to San Diego State, but I just UConn's just been destroying everybody, and I just don't see that as being a very interesting game as opposed to what took place today in the women's championship game. So that said, my 2 cents on the women's game. I watched it. It was an exciting game. Iowa got off to a nice hot start, and LSU came roaring back. And of course, at the end of the day, like with all basketball games, if any game, any contest, folks always want to talk about the officiating. The big thing is the technical foul that Caitlin got called on her. Come on, y'all. Was it a bad call? Maybe not. But that ain't costing the game. Y'all trying to focus that one technical foul cost him the game. No, I didn't. You know what lost Iowa the game? The first half. The first half cost them the game. Because as much as they want to cry about fouls or whatnot, and I know Iowa had their players with foul trouble, but LSU, they had their 2 starters right off the bat. First half, they go to the bench. Angel Reese, another starter, on the bench. That was Iowa's time to do some damage to LSU, and you know what? They couldn't do it. LSU's bench came in and showed out. At one point, it was 28, 30 points to 2 in bench points. There's your ball game right there. Iowa had a chance. They blew it. Caitlin got out-Clarked by Jasmine Carter. She lit them up in the first half. 21 points off the bench. That girl could not miss from the three-point line. And I mean, LSU's bench came in and did the job against Iowa's starters. Where was Iowa during that stretch when LSU had their 2 of their primary players out in the first half? Did Angel Reese even play in the first? Did she even play in the first half? She got those 2 fouls. The other starter got them 2 fouls, and they sat pretty much the whole second quarter. And you know what? LSU's bench came in and held it down. Not only did they hold it down, they outplayed Iowa starters. To me, that's the ball game. You can't cry about fouls if you couldn't take advantage of the bench when LSU had to go their bench. You went to your bench, you couldn't produce. Your starters couldn't produce. Outside of Caitlin Clark making threes, what that was Iowa's time to put the game away. They couldn't do it. So don't go crying, whining now at the end of the game when you get the foul start going against you. Was it a bad officiated game? Both teams could complain. You've seen both coaches complaining. A lot of fouls called. LSU took advantage of the situation when their starters were out. Iowa didn't. Plain and simple. It's just as simple as that. Look at the bench scoring. And I told you about Iowa. And then let's talk about the technical foul. But everyone wants to blame that technical foul. Was it a bad technical foul call because she threw the ball? I mean, I've seen that call. I've seen the call before in games, men's side, women's side. I've seen that call plenty of times where they throw the ball away. Intentional, unintentional, she threw the ball away. Well, they shouldn't have called it technical. Maybe not, but I think it was just that one singular play They may not have called it, but I told you how Iowa plays. I told you. I told you. They whine all game long, and that's what they do. And let me wrap it back around. And I say this because watching them play last season when Ohio State went in there and beat them, when our Lady Buckeyes went into Iowa and beat them, when we beat them, that's all they did. That whole second, I think Ohio State came back and beat them in their house, and that's all that coach did. That's all she did the whole game, and it filters down to her players. That's all they did the whole game against Ohio State, especially that second half. Every time Caitlin made a 3-pointer, Taylor made a 3-pointer. Every time Caitlin did something and made a drive to the basket, JC was driving, going to the basket. Every time, and then we were in their grill. Ricky Harris was in the grill, Braxton Miller was in their grill, and they didn't like the physicality, and that's all the coach did, Lisa Bluter. That's all they did. And that's why I started thinking this about Iowa. Every time, just watching some of their games throughout ever since then and leading into this season, I swear that's all they do. I swear that's all they practice. They practice 3-pointers and being shocked when the foul's called or not called against them. That's all they do. And I'm thinking that one play, her throwing the ball away, probably wouldn't have been a technical, but that's all they did all game long. Every time. And you know what? When she threw the ball away, the referee probably said enough is enough is enough. And she got the technical. That's that's my spin on the referee. It had enough of the whining and complaining and stuff that the Iowa team does. And both coaches did it. She was whining and complaining too, but the difference is I don't think her players was doing it as much as Iowa's players. That's just my personal thing. But that's all Iowa does. and the technical didn't cost them the game. Their atrocious play from the bench. Their LSU's bench held it down in the first half when they needed to. When LSU starters went out, I mean, Jasmine Carter, like I said, she lit it up in that first half, and I don't think she made a point in the second half. But then she didn't need to. LSU got their starters back. Angel Reese was doing her thing on the inside, and then Morris had the mid-range game going. They chewed them to death. I don't think they made a 3-pointer the whole second half, except one. So I think they had one 3-pointer that whole second half. Meanwhile, Iowa made the run after LSU went up by 21 points. They made that run by 3-pointers. They're known for 3-pointers. They got a lot of folks that can make threes, and that's what they did. That's how they got back into the game. But take the accuracy of a 2-pointer over some of the 3-pointers all day. And LSU, they stayed the course. Angela Morris stepped in. Angela Morris, I can't remember her first name, but Morris came in and she controlled it the rest of the way, making the mid-range jumpers. Angel Reese controlling the boards. And LSU, they played a better game. They had more input from more players, and Iowa lost their opportunity in that first half when they could not take advantage of LSU's bench. LSU's bench came in and outscored them. They outscored Iowa starters. There is your ball game in a nutshell. You give up 100 points, you got very little to complain about. Iowa's used to outscoring folks. They ran to a team they could not outscore. LSU matched them 3 for 3. They were matching them with 3-pointers for 3-pointers. Plus, they're doing their twos. Got the 2-point game going, and Iowa couldn't hang. So it was a fun game. And I thought Iowa. I didn't know. I thought Caitlin it was her final year. I think I submitted a previous thing when we learned JC was coming back. I was like, all right, cool. Ain't gonna be no Caitlin Clark to deal with. Well, I did not know she was a junior, and I didn't know they had those restrictions on the ladies. So Caitlin Clark will be back next year, and there's another good chance that one of her running mates will be back next year. So they're going to be good again. They're going to be good again if they can replace Tanzano. They're going to be another tough out again, but it was an exciting game. I think the better team won. I thought Iowa lost their opportunity to take control of the game when Angel Reese and the other starter went out in the first half. LSU's bench, they dominated that first half, and I think ultimately that's what led them to winning the game and then just being steady down the stretch. So anyway, that is my take on the women's Final Four championship game. The men's game, I might watch it. I mean, it's probably going to be over by halftime the way UConn's been dominating, folks. It's just men's Final Four this year just was not all that interesting, especially when Florida Atlantic got knocked out on that buzzer beater. So this was the year for the women. Iowa had their chance. They blew it. They blew it. But next up, we can finally get into some football. So we'll save it for then. Save it for then. I hope you're liking this segment. Deviated a little bit from Ohio State, but you see, I roped it in. There's a reason why I feel about Iowa the way I do. But anyway, until next time, OHIO, go Bucks.